Chapter 1. The Funeral That Stole My Future. Rain was falling when I stepped out of the taxi and looked at the old stone church. My chest felt heavy. I whispered, "I'm home, Grandpa." The driver nodded. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." I picked up my suitcase and walked toward the entrance. Every step reminded me of the man who had raised me after my parents died. He had never missed a birthday, never forgotten a promise, and never let me believe I was alone. I opened the church door. Uncle Richard walked toward me with open arms. "Ethan," he said softly, "I'm glad you made it." I hugged him, although something about his smile felt strange. "I came as fast as I could." "I know." He patted my shoulder. "Your grandfather loved you." I loved him too. Victoria walked over, wearing an expensive black dress. "You finally arrived," she said. "I caught the first flight." She crossed her arms. "I've been handling everything for the past week. Funeral arrangements, lawyers, business calls, guests. It's been exhausting." I nodded. "I'm sure it has." She smiled proudly. Someone had to keep everything together. I looked around the church. So many people came. Grandpa had spent years helping families, donating money quietly, and giving jobs to people who needed a second chance. One elderly man wiped tears from his face. Another hugged me. "Your grandfather was a great man," he whispered. "Thank you." The funeral service began. I sat in the front row, staring at the wooden casket. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The pastor spoke gently. He lived with kindness, honesty, and faith. I closed my eyes. Every memory came rushing back. Grandpa teaching me how to ride a bicycle. Grandpa cheering at my graduation. Grandpa telling me, "Character is worth more than money." My throat tightened. "I miss you already," I whispered. After the service ended, people gathered outside. Richard stood beside me. "He was proud of you." "Did he ever say that?" "Many times." A small smile appeared on my face. "That means everything." Victoria interrupted. "We should leave. We still have meetings tomorrow." "What meetings?" "The estate." I looked at her. "I don't care about money." She shrugged. "Maybe you don't." Richard cleared his throat. "Tomorrow isn't the time to argue." I nodded. "You're right." For the next few days I stayed at a nearby hotel. Nobody invited me to the family mansion. That hurt more than I expected. Finally, the morning arrived. The family gathered inside my grandfather's study. Nothing had changed. His favorite chair still faced the fireplace. His reading glasses rested on the desk. I wanted to sit there one last time. Instead, I remained quietly near the window. The attorney opened a folder. "Thank you for coming." Nobody spoke. He adjusted his glasses. "I will now read the final will." I took a deep breath. I expected almost nothing. Maybe Grandpa had left me an old watch. Maybe a letter. Maybe one photograph. That would have been enough. The attorney continued reading. "The family mansion will pass to Richard Walker." Richard nodded calmly. "The investment portfolio will also transfer to Richard Walker." Victoria smiled. "The businesses, vacation properties, classic vehicles, and personal collections will become the property of Richard Walker." Silence filled the room. I frowned. There had to be more. The attorney turned another page. "Victoria Walker will receive shares in the family companies and financial trusts." She smiled even wider. I waited. Nothing came. Finally, I raised my hand. "Excuse me." The attorney looked at me. "Yes." "Did Grandpa leave me anything?" He looked down at the papers, then back at me. "I'm sorry." My heart stopped. "According to this will, you inherit nothing." The room became painfully quiet. I stared at him. "I'm sorry, what?" "You are not listed as a beneficiary." I couldn't breathe. "There has to be a mistake." Richard sighed. "Ethan." I turned toward him. "You knew?" He lowered his eyes. "I learned when everyone else did." "Liar." Victoria laughed quietly. "Don't embarrass yourself." I looked at her. "You think this is funny?" "No." Her smile said otherwise. "I think Grandpa knew who was responsible enough to protect what he built." I clenched my fists. "I loved him." She answered coldly. "Love doesn't run companies." Richard stepped between us. "Enough." I shook my head. "No, this isn't my grandfather." The attorney spoke carefully. The documents appear legally valid. I laughed bitterly. Appear? He hesitated. They meet the required legal standards. I looked around the room. Nobody defended me. Nobody questioned anything. Nobody even looked into my eyes. I picked up my coat. I'm leaving. Richard called after me. Ethan, don't make today harder than it already is. I stopped at the door. You didn't lose your family today. Then I walked away. Outside, cold wind hit my face. I couldn't hold the tears anymore. I wasn't enough, I whispered. I failed you, Grandpa. I reached the cemetery before sunset. His grave was covered with fresh flowers. I'm sorry, I said. I thought you believed in me. No answer came. Only silence. As I turned to leave, I noticed an elderly man standing beneath a distant oak tree. He wore an old gray coat and carried a worn leather briefcase. He wasn't mourning. He was watching me. Our eyes met. He gave me the smallest nod, as if he recognized something I didn't. Before I could walk toward him, he turned away and disappeared through the cemetery gate. I stood frozen, wondering why a complete stranger looked at me as though he knew the truth that everyone else wanted buried. Chapter 2. The Stranger Who Remembered Everything. 3 days had passed since I walked away from my grandfather's funeral feeling like I had lost everything. I kept replaying the lawyer's words in my mind. You inherit nothing. Those words hurt more every time I remembered them. I sat alone in my hotel room when someone knocked on my door. I opened it and saw the elderly man from the cemetery. I froze. You were there, I said. He looked at me calmly. Yes, Ethan, I was. Who are you? He removed his hat and held out his hand. My name is Benjamin Harris. I shook his hand carefully. Do I know you? You should. I stared at him. I'm sorry, but I don't remember meeting you. He looked disappointed. I was your grandfather's attorney for 30 years. My eyes widened. You were his lawyer? Yes. Then why didn't you attend the will reading? Benjamin looked away. Because I was not invited. A strange feeling moved through me. Why? Because Richard Walker did not want me there. I stepped back. Richard knew you? Very well. I crossed my arms. What does that mean? Benjamin opened his briefcase and pulled out an old notebook. It means your grandfather trusted me with things your family does not want you to know. I looked at the notebook. What things? He stared directly into my eyes. Ethan, did you actually read your grandfather's last letter? My heart stopped. What letter? The letter your grandfather wrote before he died. I shook my head. There was no letter. Benjamin's expression changed instantly. No letter? No. Nobody mentioned any letter. He slowly sat down. That is impossible. I became nervous. Why? Because I watched him write it. The room went silent. You watched him? Yes. When? 2 weeks before his death. I moved closer. Benjamin, tell me everything. He opened the notebook. Your grandfather called me to his house late at night. What did he say? He told me he was afraid. I frowned. Afraid of what? His own family. I felt anger rise inside me. My grandfather never said anything like that. Because he wanted to protect you. I looked away. Protect me from Richard? Benjamin nodded. Richard had been making decisions without permission. Money transfers. Business changes. Property movements. I clenched my jaw. So Richard stole from him? I cannot say that yet. Why not? Because I need proof. I walked toward the window. My entire family betrayed me. Benjamin's voice became softer. Your grandfather never betrayed you. I turned around. Then why did he leave me nothing? That is the question we need to answer. I stared at him. We? Yes. Why help me? He smiled sadly. Because I promised your grandfather I would. I looked down. What exactly did he ask you to do? Benjamin closed the notebook. He told me that if anything happened to him, I needed to make sure the truth reached you. My hands tightened. What truth? The truth about the inheritance. The next morning, Benjamin took me to his old office. Dust covered the shelves, but boxes filled every corner. I thought you retired, I said. I did. Why? He looked at me. Because Richard forced me out. I stopped walking. What? He told me my services were no longer needed. Did he threaten you? Benjamin stayed quiet. That means yes. He was very convincing. I looked around. How many people did Richard silence? More than you realize. While Benjamin searched through old files, my phone rang. A woman introduced herself. Hello. Is this Ethan Walker? Yes. Who is this? My name is Sarah Collins. I'm an investigative journalist. I became suspicious. Why are you calling me? I heard about your grandfather's estate. My expression changed. And I have been researching suspicious inheritance transfers involving wealthy families in Seattle. I looked at Benjamin. What does that have to do with me? I think your grandfather's case might be connected. I stayed quiet. Why do you think that? Because several businesses connected to your family changed ownership shortly before his death. My stomach tightened. Who told you? I have sources. I looked at Benjamin. Can we meet? Yes. Later that afternoon, Sarah joined us at the office. She placed several documents on the table. I found these records. Benjamin picked them up. Where did you get them? Public archives. He studied the papers. These transfers are unusual. Sarah looked at me. Your grandfather's estate was not the first one affected. I swallowed. So, this was planned? That's what I'm trying to discover. Benjamin opened another box. We need to find the letter. Sarah looked confused. What letter? I answered. My grandfather wrote one before he died. Her eyes widened. And nobody knows where it is? No. Benjamin carefully searched through old files. Someone removed it. I looked at him. How do you know? Because I stored everything exactly where your grandfather instructed. A cold feeling moved through me. Someone had not just taken my inheritance. Someone had erased my grandfather's final message. Sarah picked up another document. Ethan, look at this. I walked closer. What is it? A payment record. My face changed. Richard? She nodded. The money moved through one of his private accounts. Benjamin looked serious. This is bigger than money. I stared at the documents. For the first time since my grandfather's death, I felt something stronger than pain. I felt determination. Someone had stolen my family's truth. But I was going to find it. And when I did, nobody would be able to hide from it. Chapter 3. The Forgotten Letter. I stared at the documents spread across Benjamin's old wooden desk. Every paper felt like another piece of a puzzle that someone had tried to destroy. Benjamin opened another dusty box and sighed. I searched this office many times, he said. I thought everything important was gone. Sarah looked around the room. Are you sure there isn't anything else hidden here? Benjamin shook his head. I checked every drawer, every cabinet, and every shelf. I looked at the old boxes stacked in the corner. What about those? He followed my eyes. Those belong to your grandfather. Then why haven't you opened them? Because Richard ordered the office to be cleared after I retired. My anger grew. He had no right. No, Benjamin said quietly. He didn't. I walked toward the boxes. Then we opened them now. Benjamin gave me a small smile. That sounds like something your grandfather would say. We moved the boxes onto the table. Most contained old contracts, photographs, and business papers. Sarah picked up a folder. Ethan, look at this. I walked over. What is it? Old property records. Benjamin examined them. These are from 20 years ago. Anything important? I asked. He shook his head. Not yet. Hours passed. The room became quiet except for the sound of papers moving. Then Benjamin suddenly stopped. Wait. I turned around. What happened? He held a small metal box. Where did you find that? Behind the false panel. Sarah stepped closer. Was that always there? Benjamin looked confused. No. My heart started beating faster. Open it. He tried the lock. Nothing happened. It's locked. I looked at him. Can you open it? Not without damaging it. Sarah looked at the box carefully. Maybe there is a key somewhere. Benjamin searched through another drawer. After several minutes, he pulled out a tiny key. My breath stopped. Where did you get that? It was attached to one of your grandfather's old documents. He inserted the key. The lock clicked. Nobody spoke. Benjamin slowly opened the box. Inside was a sealed envelope. My hands became cold when I saw the name written on it. Ethan Walker. I whispered, "That's mine." Benjamin picked up the envelope. Your grandfather's signature. Sarah looked at me. Open it. I held the letter carefully. For a moment I couldn't move. This was the first thing my grandfather had left me. Not money, not property, a message. I opened it. My eyes moved across the handwritten words. Dear Ethan, if you are reading this, then something went wrong. My chest tightened. I continued reading. I want you to know that I never forgot you. You were the only person in my family who loved me before knowing what I owned. I stopped. My eyes filled with tears. Sarah touched my shoulder. Are you okay? I nodded slowly. I'm fine. But I wasn't. I kept reading. My greatest regret is that I could not protect you from people who valued my wealth more than my life. I closed my eyes. Benjamin looked away. He knew. I continued. The inheritance was always meant for you. But I created a second updated will because I discovered things that concerned me. I looked at Benjamin. Second updated will? He leaned forward. What does it say? I kept reading. The updated will is stored separately in a legal archive. Only Benjamin Harris knows where to find it. Benjamin became shocked. I didn't know. What? He shook his head. Your grandfather never told me the location. Sarah frowned. Then who knows? Nobody answered. A loud noise suddenly came from outside. We all turned. What was that? I asked. Benjamin stood up. I don't know. The lights went off. My heart raced. Sarah grabbed her phone. Someone is here. We heard a door open. Benjamin whispered. Stay back. Footsteps moved through the office. Then everything became silent. A few minutes later, the lights returned. I looked around. The office was destroyed. Drawers were open. Papers were everywhere. Benjamin ran toward his desk. No. What happened? I asked. He checked the files. They took the documents. Sarah looked around. But they missed something. I held the copies of the letter. The copies. She nodded. Good thing we scanned everything. Benjamin looked worried. This wasn't random. I already knew the answer. Richard. Sarah looked at me. You think he found out? He knew we were searching. Benjamin sat down. He has always been one step ahead. I looked at the destroyed office. Not anymore. A few days later, I received a message from an unknown number. Ethan, I need to talk. My name is Daniel Brooks. I met him at a small coffee shop. A nervous man sat across from me. You're Daniel? Yes. Why did you contact me? He looked around before answering. Because I made a mistake. What kind of mistake? I changed records. My expression hardened. What records? Your grandfather's financial records. I leaned forward. Explain. Daniel lowered his voice. After your grandfather became sick, Richard pressured me to adjust certain numbers. You helped him steal? His face showed regret. I was afraid. I stared at him. Fear doesn't erase what happened. I know. Then why tell me now? Because your grandfather trusted me too. I stayed silent. Daniel continued. He wanted the truth revealed if anything happened. I looked at Sarah and Benjamin standing outside the cafe. For weeks, I felt broken. I felt powerless. But now something had changed. I looked at Daniel. Will you help us? He nodded. Yes. I stood up. Then we stopped hiding. Sarah smiled slightly. That's the Ethan I was hoping to see. I looked at the city outside. Richard took my family's trust. He took my grandfather's final days. He took my inheritance. But he made one mistake. He underestimated me. I was no longer the man who walked away from the funeral. I was the man who was going to uncover the truth. Chapter 4, Every Lie Starts Falling Apart. I sat across from Daniel in Benjamin's office as he placed several thick folders on the table. Are these the records? I asked. Daniel nodded. Yes. I opened the first folder. My eyes moved quickly across the pages. These numbers, they don't match, Daniel said quietly. I looked at him. Tell me exactly what happened. Daniel took a deep breath. Before your grandfather became seriously ill, the company accounts were stable. Then Richard started moving money. How much? Daniel looked uncomfortable. Millions. My hands tightened around the papers. You knew this was happening? Yes. Then why didn't you stop him? Daniel looked down. Because I was scared. I closed the folder. People always say they were scared after the damage is done. I know. Do you understand what he took from me? Daniel nodded. I do. No, you don't. My voice became louder. He didn't just take money. He made me believe my grandfather abandoned me. Daniel stayed silent. Sarah placed her hand on the table. Ethan, we need Daniel. I looked at her. I know. Daniel looked at me. I want to fix what I did. I studied his face. Then tell the truth when the time comes. He nodded. I will. The next morning, Sarah published her investigation. She did not mention my name. She did not reveal Benjamin or Daniel. She only shared the facts. Suspicious estate transfers. Missing funds. Unexplained business changes. By afternoon, the story was everywhere. My phone kept ringing. Then I saw Richard's name. I answered. What do you want? His voice was angry. You think you can attack your own family? I stayed calm. I didn't write lies. You were trying to destroy everything your grandfather built. No. I'm trying to find out who destroyed it. A pause followed. Richard lowered his voice. You have no idea what you are doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. You're being manipulated by strangers. I looked at Sarah and Benjamin. They showed me the truth. Richard laughed. Truth? You think you know the truth? I know enough. His voice became cold. You should stop before you regret this. I tightened my grip on the phone. Is that a threat? No, because it sounded like one. Richard ended the call. I stared at the screen. Sarah noticed. He's worried. He should be. Benjamin shook his head. Don't let anger control you. I looked at him. After everything he did, how can I not be angry? Because anger makes people careless. I became quiet. He was right. A few hours later, someone knocked on my door. I opened it and saw a woman standing there. I recognized her immediately. Emma, my aunt. She looked nervous. Ethan. I stepped aside. Come in. She entered slowly. I know you probably don't want to see me. You're right. She looked hurt. But I need to tell you something. I crossed my arms. What? She sat down. I knew Richard was hiding things. My expression changed. You knew? She nodded. Not everything, but I knew something was wrong. Then why did you stay quiet? Tears appeared in her eyes. Because I was afraid. I looked away. Everyone was afraid. I know. Do you know what that cost me? She whispered. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. Emma continued. Your grandfather trusted you more than anyone. How do you know? Because I saw it. She wiped her eyes. Richard hated that your grandfather always defended you. I looked at her. Will you testify? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. For the first time, I saw someone from my family choose the truth. Later that evening, Daniel called me. Ethan, we have a problem. What happened? Richard came to see me. My heart tightened. What did he want? He wanted me to change my statement. I stood up. Did he threaten you? He offered me money. And I refused. I felt surprised. Daniel, I made mistakes before. I won't make another one. A small sense of hope appeared. Thank you. I'm doing this because it's right. After the call ended, Sarah looked at me. He chose courage. I nodded. Yes. The next day, I saw Victoria outside the courthouse. She looked different. Not confident. Not proud. Just confused. Ethan. I stopped. What? She looked down. I didn't know. I watched her carefully. Didn't know what? That my father changed the records. I said nothing. He never told me. I almost laughed. Now you understand how it feels when someone hides the truth. She looked away. I thought he was protecting our family. He was protecting himself. Victoria looked at me. You really believe that? Yes. She walked away without another word. Watching her leave, I realized something. The perfect family Richard created was breaking apart. The lies were finally becoming visible. But Benjamin's warning stayed in my mind. Justice required patience, not anger. I looked at the evidence in my hands. Richard wanted me to lose control. He wanted me to make mistakes. But I wouldn't. I had already lost my family once. I wasn't going to lose myself trying to get them back. Chapter 5. The trial everyone feared. I had imagined many moments where I would face Richard again, but I never imagined it would happen inside a courtroom. I sat beside Benjamin, Sarah, Daniel, and Emma. The room was filled with people waiting to hear the truth. A woman in a black robe entered. Everyone, please rise. I stood as Judge Eleanor Hayes took her seat. This court is now in session. My heart beat faster. This was no longer about money. It was about my grandfather's final wishes. Richard sat across the room wearing an expensive suit. He looked confident, almost too confident. His lawyer stood. Your Honor, we believe this case is based on false accusations created by a bitter family member. I looked at Richard. He didn't even look away. My lawyer stood. We are here because evidence was hidden, financial records were changed, and a rightful inheritance was taken through deception. Judge Hayes looked at both sides. Present your evidence. Benjamin walked forward first. He carried the old envelope. I watched him place it on the table. Mr. Harris, what is this? This is a letter written by my client, Thomas Walker. Richard's lawyer immediately stood. Objection. We cannot verify when this letter was written. Judge Hayes looked at Benjamin. Can you prove its authenticity? Yes. Benjamin opened his folder. I personally witnessed Mr. Walker writing this letter. The courtroom became silent. Richard moved in his seat. Benjamin continued. Thomas Walker trusted me because he believed his final wishes might be ignored. I looked at Richard. His confidence was fading. Judge Hayes examined the letter. Continue. Benjamin read the important parts. Ethan was the only person who loved me without caring about my wealth. I felt my eyes become heavy. Hearing my grandfather's words in that room meant everything. Richard's lawyer shook his head. This is emotional manipulation. Benjamin looked at him. No, this is the truth. Next, Daniel walked forward. My hands tightened. This was the moment he had feared. The lawyer asked, Mr. Brooks, explain these records. Daniel took a deep breath. I was the estate accountant. And what did you discover? Daniel looked at Richard. I discovered financial changes that were made without proper approval. Richard's lawyer stood. Are you accusing Mr. Walker? Daniel answered calmly. Yes. The room reacted. Richard leaned forward. You're lying. Daniel looked at him. No. I'm finally telling the truth. I felt proud of him. The man who was once afraid was now standing against the person who controlled him. Then Emma was called. She walked slowly toward the witness stand. Mrs. Walker, do you have information regarding the estate? Emma nodded. Yes. Please explain. She looked at Richard. I knew he was controlling everything. Richard's face changed. Emma. She ignored him. He pressured people to stay quiet. The lawyer asked, Did he pressure you? Emma lowered her eyes. Yes. Richard shook his head. She's confused. Emma looked directly at him. No. I was scared. The courtroom went quiet. Then Sarah's investigation was presented. Documents, bank transfers, hidden payments, everything connected back to the estate. My lawyer placed the records in front of the judge. Your Honor, these transfers show money being moved before Mr. Walker's death. Richard's lawyer stood quickly. This proves nothing. Judge Hayes looked at him. It proves enough to require an explanation. For the first time, Richard looked nervous. Then he stood. I know what this is. Everyone looked at him. This is Ethan trying to punish me because he didn't receive what he wanted. I stared at him. That's not true. Richard pointed at me. He created this entire story. My lawyer stood. That accusation has no evidence. Richard looked angry. I'm his family. Judge Hayes interrupted. Family relationships do not replace facts. Richard sat down. His face became darker. After a short break, Benjamin returned to the stand. He looked at me. Then he looked at the judge. There is one more thing. My heart stopped. What? Benjamin opened another folder. I found this inside a legal archive. The courtroom became completely silent. What is it? Judge Hayes asked. Benjamin placed a document on the table. A certified copy of the updated will. Richard immediately stood. No. Everyone turned toward him. Judge Hayes looked at him. Mr. Walker, please sit down. Richard slowly sat. Benjamin continued. Thomas Walker created this updated will because he discovered the original inheritance documents had been compromised. I couldn't move. The truth was finally standing in front of everyone. Judge Hayes reviewed the document. This appears to be authentic. Richard's lawyer looked defeated. Victoria sat behind her father, staring at the papers. She looked broken. After the hearing ended, she approached me. Ethan. I stopped. What? She looked at the ground. I was wrong. I didn't answer. I believed everything my father told me. And now? She swallowed. Now I realize he lied to me too. For the first time, I saw regret in her eyes. I'm sorry. I nodded slowly. I wanted answers, not apologies. She looked at me. You really changed. I thought about everything I had lost. The pain, the betrayal, the loneliness. Then I looked back at the courtroom doors. No. I smiled slightly. I finally became who I was supposed to be. As I walked away, I understood something. Truth does not always arrive quickly. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it hides behind lies and fear. But when truth finally appears, nobody can bury it again. Chapter 6. Karma Doesn't Need Revenge. I sat in the courtroom, waiting for Judge Hayes to return. The past few months had changed everything. I remembered the day I entered that room, believing I had lost my grandfather's love. Now I sat there knowing the truth. The doors opened. Everyone, please rise. I stood as Judge Hayes entered. She looked at the documents in front of her. After reviewing all evidence, witness statements, and financial records, this court has reached a decision. My hands rested quietly on the table. Richard looked nervous. Judge Hayes continued. The original inheritance transfer was obtained through fraud and manipulation. A silence filled the courtroom. Richard's face changed. No. Judge Hayes looked at him. Mr. Walker, you will have an opportunity to speak after the ruling. She continued. The estate, properties, and financial assets obtained through fraudulent actions will be returned according to the valid updated will. I closed my eyes for a moment. My grandfather's final wish was finally respected. Judge Hayes continued. Additionally, evidence of financial crimes will be forwarded for criminal investigation. Richard's lawyer leaned toward him. Richard whispered angrily. This cannot be happening. I heard him, but for the first time his anger didn't affect me. Judge Hayes finished. This court is adjourned. Everyone stood. Outside the courtroom, reporters surrounded the entrance. Sarah walked toward me. You did it. I shook my head. No. She smiled. We all did. Benjamin joined us. Your grandfather would have been proud. I looked down. I wish he could have seen this. Benjamin placed a hand on my shoulder. He saw your character long before today. I took a deep breath. For years, I thought winning meant watching Richard lose. But standing there, I realized something. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel joy from his pain. I just felt peace. Later that afternoon, Victoria asked to meet me. I found her sitting outside a quiet cafe. She stood when she saw me. Ethan. Victoria. She looked nervous. I wanted to apologize. I sat down. Why? Because I was wrong. I stayed silent. She continued. I thought money was everything. She looked at her hands. I thought having the mansion, businesses, and status meant I was successful. And now? She sighed. Now I understand I lost something more important. What? Family. Her voice became softer. I treated you like an outsider because I believed my father's lies. I looked at her. Do you regret it? Yes. She didn't hesitate. I regret every moment I chose wealth over kindness. I nodded slowly. An apology doesn't erase everything. I know, but accepting the truth matters. She looked surprised. Thank you. After leaving Victoria, I visited Emma. She was packing boxes. Are you moving? She smiled sadly. Yes. Where? I don't know yet. I looked at the boxes. Why leave? She took a deep breath. Because I spent years living someone else's life. She looked at me. I stayed quiet because I was comfortable. And now I want to build something honest. I smiled. I hope you find it. She hugged me. Thank you for giving me a chance. A week later, Daniel's investigation ended. He called me. It's over. What happened? They cleared me. I smiled. You deserve that. Daniel laughed softly. I made mistakes. But you corrected them. That's because you gave me the courage. I shook my head. You found the courage yourself. Then came Sarah's news. She walked into Benjamin's office holding her phone. Ethan, guess what? What? My investigation won a National Journalism Award. I smiled. That's amazing. She laughed. I couldn't have done it without you. No. I looked at her. You exposed the truth. Sarah looked at me. You changed too. I smiled. How? You stopped fighting because you were hurt. She paused. You started fighting because it was right. Her words stayed with me. That night, I visited my grandfather's grave. I placed flowers beside his name. I found the truth, Grandpa. The wind moved softly around me. I wanted revenge. I smiled sadly. I wanted Richard to suffer. I looked at the ground, but now I understand. Revenge would not bring back the years I lost. It would not erase the pain. It would not change what happened. I whispered, justice was enough. I stayed there quietly. The pain was still part of me. The betrayal still existed, but it no longer controlled me. Richard lost everything he stole. Victoria learned the cost of greed. Emma found the courage to start again. Daniel earned his freedom. Sarah showed the world the truth. And I finally learned something my grandfather always believed. A person does not become powerful by destroying others. A person becomes powerful by refusing to let hatred destroy them. I walked away from the grave feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time since my grandfather died, I wasn't carrying anger. I was carrying peace. Chapter 7. The Legacy My Grandfather Wanted. 6 months had passed since the courtroom decision. My grandfather's estate was finally mine. The mansion that once represented pain and betrayal now represented something completely different. A new beginning. I stood in the old living room with Sarah beside me. She looked around and smiled. It's hard to believe this place feels different now. I looked at the walls. Because it is different. What changed? I smiled. I did. Sarah looked at me. That's the answer I expected. I laughed softly. For months, I thought this house was just a reminder of everything I lost. And now it reminds me of everything I survived. Sarah walked toward the window. Your grandfather would love what you're doing. I looked at the plans on the table. The Scholarship Foundation? She nodded. Yes. I picked up the documents. When I was a kid, I lost my parents and felt like my entire world disappeared. Sarah looked at me quietly. I know. I had my grandfather because he refused to let me feel alone. I placed the papers down. There are children going through the same pain I went through. Sarah smiled. You're giving them what your grandfather gave you. A chance. She nodded. Exactly. The mansion was no longer a symbol of wealth. It became a place where children without families could receive support, education, and hope. A few weeks later, Benjamin visited the foundation. He walked through the building slowly. I smiled. What do you think? He looked around. I think Thomas would be speechless. I laughed. That's rare. Benjamin smiled. He always had a lot to say. We stood quietly for a moment. Then he looked at me. You became the man he hoped you would become. I shook my head. I made a lot of mistakes. Yes. I looked surprised. You agree? Benjamin laughed. Of course. Thanks. But mistakes are not what define you. He placed his hand on my shoulder. Your choices after the pain define you. I looked around the foundation. I wish Grandpa could see this. Benjamin smiled. He can. I looked at him. What do you mean? Everything you do with kindness carries his memory. A month later, Benjamin announced his retirement. I sat across from him at his favorite coffee shop. So, this is really happening? He smiled. Yes. You're leaving everything behind? I'm not leaving. He looked out the window. I'm finally resting. I smiled. You deserve it. Benjamin looked at me. I spent years protecting your grandfather's wishes. And now I know they are in good hands. I shook his hand. Thank you. He smiled. For what? For believing me when nobody else did. Benjamin nodded. Someone had to remind you of the truth. What truth? That you were never powerless. Those words stayed with me. My relationship with Sarah also changed. At first, we were connected because of the investigation, because of the pain, because we were searching for answers. But slowly, something else grew. One evening, we walked through the foundation garden. Sarah smiled. You know something? What? When I first met you, you looked broken. I laughed. I was broken. Yes. She looked at me. But you never became cruel. I thought about Richard. About everything that happened. I wanted to. Sarah looked at me. Really? Yes. I wanted him to suffer. She nodded. That would have been understandable. But I realized something. What? I didn't want my grandfather's memory to be about revenge. Sarah smiled. That's why I admire you. I looked at her. Sarah. She smiled. I know. The silence between us felt comfortable. Not empty. Not painful. Just peaceful. Years ago, I thought losing my inheritance meant losing everything. I was wrong. The money was never the important part. The lesson was, Richard lived the rest of his life with regret. He lost the power he once protected so carefully. But I stopped thinking about him. He no longer controlled my emotions. One evening, I sat beside the fireplace in my grandfather's mansion. I held the old letter again. The same letter that changed my life. I opened it slowly. My grandfather's handwriting was still clear. Ethan, remember that wealth can disappear, but character stays forever. I smiled. For months, I searched for an inheritance. But I finally understood. The real inheritance was never money. It was trust. It was kindness. It was courage. It was choosing to keep my heart clean even after someone tried to destroy it. I folded the letter carefully. My eyes filled with tears. Not tears of sadness. Tears of peace. I looked around the room. The same place where I once believed I had lost everything. Now it was filled with hope. I whispered, "Thank you, Grandpa." The fireplace continued burning softly. I closed my eyes. The past could not hurt me anymore. The betrayal happened. The pain was real. But I survived it. I grew from it. And finally, after everything, I felt free.